Where you grew up, where you were born, and let's hear a little bit more about your
Well,
backstory.
I'm a proud Bartitian. I was born at Bartica.
Yes.
My mother is from Bartica. My dad is from Maiconi. And so my mother's father is from Craig on the West Bank. He's Ivan Remington, a politician. He actually used to be a PPP member of parliament, and then he switched over to the PNC and became a minister in the Burnham administration. And he had a funny experience. I'll come back to that. My dad's family's from Maiconi, Quarantine area, and so my dad was a police officer, and he went up. He was stationed at Bardica, met my mother, and voila,
Yes.
made four
There
kids.
you are.
And here I am, and so I basically grew up on police properties all over Guyana. My dad, wherever my dad went, we lived on the East Coast, West Coast, Arctica. So I lived in the police compound until I left Guyana.
Mhm. Tell us which police compound, if you don't mind.
Leonora, actually, Leonora Police Compound.
Yeah.
And it's funny that I see the police talking a lot about me, but they never said I was a child of a policeman and I
Yes.
lived in the police compound
Yeah.
until I left Guyana.
Yeah.
I went to several schools, as you know, when once your parents is transferred, you transfer. So I went to um, Stroudville Secondary School, um, Swami, which is Cove and John Secondary School. Actually, Bar Jack, they taught me in school. And I guess that's where this rivalry began. And for a brief while, I went to St. Rosa's.
Yeah.
So I left Guyana in 1992. Before I left Guyana, I left high school at 16. I became a teacher at IFLUT. I actually taught at IFLUT University.
Did
Sorry,
you?
IFLUT Government School.
Yeah.
Um, there was an education officer in Region 3 by the name of Etel Drida. We used to call it Tiny Archer. And you should know her.
I know her very
So
well.
she's like, you should be a teacher.
Yeah.
And so she demanded that I be a pupil teacher. And I taught some students who were older than me. And from there, I went to do a short stint at the Ministry of Regional Development. The ministers at the time were Ormia Johnson, and Jeffrey Thomas. Then I was also assigned to a constitutional body called the NCLDO, National Congress of Local Democratic Organs. It's in the Constitution. It's supposed to be one step of government below Parliament. Doesn't really function now. And after that, I became a technical assistant at age 17, 18
Mhm.
to Faith Harding,
Yeah.
Dr. Faith Harding, who was one of the most, I just paid a tribute to her on Facebook, one of the most brilliant, beautiful, professional, saucy, savvy women in Guyanese politics. And my experience with Dr. Faith Harding was actually historic. Um, Dr. Harding was the Minister of the Public Service, and the Mission Chapel Congregational Church is a church that was started by slaves in New Amsterdam, and they were celebrating, I think, either 100 their centennial anniversary or a significant anniversary. And Mrs. Hoyt, Desmond Hoyt was the president at the time, and Mrs. Hoyt was invited to deliver the keynote address. And they asked me to write the speech. Faith asked me to write a speech, and I wrote the speech. And the president read the speech, and after she delivered it, he asked for me, and he told me, "Young man, you'll come and work for me."
Wow.
And I had a rough time at first. I thought he didn't like me, but he was training me.
Yes.
And so I became the special assistant, I think the youngest special assistant to the president of Guyana.
Absolutely.
And I left in 1992 after we lost the elections. Wonderful experience in public service. And we lost the elections in October 5th, 1992. I left on October 24th to come to study. And he asked me after my first semester to come back, Desmond Hoyt, and set up his office as opposition leader. And so I was his chief of staff. I was even working for him while I was in New York going to school.
Wow. So, as we always say, that's the backstory, right?
That's the
Because we're going to
backstory.
get to why you're so
Some people
passionate.
might say that's not true. I grew up as a criminal.
Well, I always said those are their opinion, and you have your own biography that you wrote, so then you can correct it, right?
Exactly.
So I asked you that because I know we are going to deal with some heavy topic and subject matters,
Correct.
and people need to know why you are passionate so about Guyana. A lot of us are, and you just happen to have a public forum, and a lot of people don't. So of course, all kinds of things will come, and you may even get, as I say, beside yourself for a good reason. As good as Dr. Um, John said here, a good, bad, habits. Well, with bad
Good
behavior,
trouble.
all of that.
Good trouble.
So I just wanted the people to know your backstory, know your life, and what the people who mentored you as you came up, because I would say it will be safe to say that you probably would have been one of our political leaders in our country to date. Would you agree?
Probably if I'd
Probably,
stayed in
we should
Guyana,
say.
definitely.
Yeah, a lot of us. A lot of us.
I actually left out that I was the chairman of the PNC Youth Arm,
Hmm.
and the national chairman of the Guyana Youth and Student Movement.
Yeah.
And before I left, also we formed an organization called the Guyana Young Professional Guyana Young Professional Association. We had people like Susan, attorney at law Susan Moore, Winston Jordan in that organization. I was
Hmm.
secretary,
Right.
and I was
Good.
17.
Yes.
So
Well, you're ambitious, and that's all good. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. So you then migrated to the United States, and then you got into seeing some things. Probably, I will say this: we are about the same age. My village, Shortville, I grew up in there and went to Zeeburg School and left just like you, the first form, and then we migrated with our families, and then we came to America, and it would be safe to say we didn't see some of the things growing up. Um, we didn't, people didn't call us out of our names blatantly, and we had to sort of adapt to another social structure, if you will, in this country. And then we were like, well, I don't remember that growing up. And if it were there, I didn't see it, I didn't experience it, right? And so you left with all of that a part of you, a part of your DNA, if you will, right? And of course, you never forget Guyana. You still had a passion and a drive. And as I will say, to see Guyana do well, to see its government held accountable for all Guyanese, right? And so that took on a life of its own as you began to emerge and become a young man and get into politics that you love so much.
Exactly.
So I have an array of questions from all walks of life. People knew I was going to be interviewing you, and some know you, some heard of you. And so we are going to inform, educate, enlighten, and just put some things out there that they probably didn't know if it, what's going on really with
Hmm.
Guyana, because we're talking
Hmm.
about Guyana, and so let's jump into some of the questions, and I will bring them to you in different areas that I see fit.
Sure.
So our first one, it says, why the government of Guyana, specifically our vice president Barrett Jagdeo, is attacking Guyanese in the diaspora who speak out against corruption, racial discrimination, and injustice. Doesn't the Guyana government respect the laws of the US and our constitutional freedom of speech?
No, the government of Guyana does not respect the laws of the United States, and the government of Guyana does not respect the Guyana Constitution and people's constitutional rights. Bar Jack, there was a tyrant. I call him a bootleg tyrant because he's never faced what real tyrants faced, like tyrants in the Middle East. Um, we saw the Arab Spring, and the people dealt with tyrants. They are all kicked out of power. Um, Barrett Jagdeo does not believe that certain people have the right to freedom, have civil rights, have civil liberties. One of the reasons why we formed CGID, first it was GID, Guyana Institute for Democracy, is when I left Guyana, when the PP government came to power in 1992, the country changed. We became a brutal dictatorship, not only a dictatorship, but an ethnocracy, where you had ethnicity becoming paramount. When the when the PNC was in power, I grew up hearing Chetty Jagan and members of the PPP criticizing the PNC for what they call the paramountcy of the party. When the PPP came to power in 1992, ethnicity became paramount, and they governed the country for their own ethnic collective, and that's an ethnocracy based on political science. Um, and so they began to mistreat people, African Guyanese people, chief of whom was Mark Benchcop, who's a dear friend of mine. And I was really angry about that. As a young man, as a teenager, I was angry that a government can look at a young man and say, we want to put you away because you're exposing our racism and our corruption, and we're going to frame you and say that you committed treason, lock you up in jail, and for treason in solitary confinement. And when we saw that, we decided to form an organization. And we became so effective in prosecuting the case against the PPP that other Caribbean nationals began to join us. They wanted to be part of this movement. They wanted to be part of holding governments in the Caribbean accountable. And so we had Haitians, Jamaicans, Grenadians, Trinidadians joining GID, and then we had to change the name. It went beyond that. We were so effective. We devised an award called the Democracy Prize for leaders in the Caribbean that promote democracy, real democracy. And we honored the Prime Minister of Trinidad, the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, now Ralph Gonzalez, and we took that award away because he walked away from the ideals of the prize. And we also honored the Prime Minister of the Bahamas. Now, I said all of that to say that the PPP government didn't like that, and they were clamping down on freedom of assembly. This is on the bar jack there. Freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. You can talk. And then they went beyond that. They started killing people like they did in China and Russia that spoke out against Bar Jagdeo, murdering people. Don't let me use my figures. Let's use Demerara Wave, which is to me a news outlet that's favorable to the government. Demerara Wave has several reports where they're quoted as saying over 1,000 people were killed, including Ronald Ronald, journalists, anybody that spoke out. And when I saw that as a black man, and I live in America, and I want to socialize Guyanese to understand that it is not taboo to talk about race. We have to talk about the challenges of our society, and that's how we'll devise strategies to overcome them. But what the government has done, this PPP government and their party, they have conflated criticism with their party with criticism of East Indian people, proving that they're an ethnocracy, right? And so they see criticism of their racism as racist. They project that to their people. And so when you criticize them now, they say that it's racist, but it's the government that is racist. It is the most racist government in the Western Hemisphere. And what we want to do is bring awareness to this to the United States government, to the world. Ghana is not a democracy. And the people in Guyana can't speak out. Every black talk show host in Guyana has been arrested, male. Most of them are male. Everyone has been arrested. Name them, everyone. Now, those people have been arrested, they're intimidated. And now we in the diaspora picked it up because we like, somebody has to stand up to this government. And they have decided that we don't have rights in this country to speak out against them. And so I'm the chief one. They're not targeting me because I'm speaking out alone. They're targeting me because I'm the Guyanese in America with the most influence politically. And Dr. Henry Jeffrey, who was the former PPP minister of education and health under Bar Jack, they recently wrote in the Kaicher News that the government is very uncomfortable with my association with the powers that be in America, and they are out to discredit me. They don't want to discredit me. We have evidence that they have been participating in a conspiracy to have me killed.
Mm.
This is not idle talk. The FBI monitors everything that I do, and I'm not going to say anything other than that. You guys know because
Mhm.
there's law enforcement present here because I'm here. So, um, and I hope that there'll be accountability soon. It extends beyond the government to their minions in the Guyana police force. And they're using police instruments unlawfully to either coerce people to follow their political directives or coerce people into being silenced. And in this country that is called repression, there's a massive investigation being conducted against persons in Guyana for attempting to repress Americans, people that live in this country, Guyanese that live in this country, Guyanese nationals. And I hope one day when indictments come down, it will swallow the government of Guyana. It will swallow them. And Guyanese at home should be proud of us in the diaspora. They can't talk because they're killed and they're targeted. We can talk. And I'll continue to talk. They can't do anything about me talking. And so I want people in the diaspora to understand. I'll go into what they did later on based on your questions. They have a right to speak. In this country, it's founded on freedom, and we must exercise our freedom. And no one in Guyana, not the police force, not the police commissioner, not Bar Jack Dave, not the president, not nor a court, can tell us in America what to do, what to say, how to do it, or intimidate us. We'll fight back.
So the organization that you all created, what is what is that doing here for the Guyanese that are here and for the Guyanese that are in Guyana? What exactly is the action that you all are going after? Because I know we can talk all day about what they are doing, but what is proactive measures that are being taken? Because at the end of the day, they're still civilians. They place those people in governmental spaces, and they should be able to remove them. So is that an issue with them being heard? So I'm trying to figure out where we have the Guyanese here who understand the plight that they're in and the ones back home. Why can't we do something? Why can't we utilize the platform that you created and make this work for them? Because it seems like it's just as you said, we've lost democracy. I wouldn't hope that's not the case. I'm optimistic, And I would hope we will still have a voice and that our people, everybody, not just the Afro Guyanese, but everybody should say, this is wrong what the government is doing, trying to silence their nationals, and what can the people do overall? So where's the action?
Well, it's a twofold question. In Guyana, people need to start standing up. People are scared. People are intimidated. The Guyana police force guns down people that protest. It might sound unreal. Let's take the two young men that were slaughtered by PPP supporters, Joel and Isaiah Henry. When those angry villagers started to protest, they sent police to shoot the people. They're protesting because two young men, 16-year-old, were slaughtered, heads cut off, backs cut in half, and the government did nothing. As a matter of fact, because the family members were so persistent in demanding justice, they framed the family members, the police. The Guyana police force framed the brother of the dead boy with murder.
Mm.
They killed those two women, the two parents. Both of them are now dead because they were tortured to death by the Guyana police force. The Guyana police force tortured the parents of Joel and Isaiah Henry to death. One of them died from a heart attack. The perpetrators of the murder would go and shoot up their homes, and the Guyana police force did nothing. So people are scared. Soon as you talk out, we have a very bad law that was passed by President Granger's administration, and I criticized them harshly for that, called the Cybercrime Law, the Cybercrime Act. And the Cybercrime Act is draconian. Basically, it curbs free speech. I think it's unconstitutional.
Okay.
And the Granger administration never used it. This PPP administration the PPP administration members are using this to shut people up. And so the Guyana police force is now not the Guyana police force. The Guyana police force has become the political force of the PPP. We have a very unqualified police commissioner, the most unqualified police commissioner in the history of the country. And because he's unqualified and was appointed, I guess he is wholly bought and sold to the PPP and is using the police force to enforce Barjagdeo's tyrannical I'm not going to say what I want to say, but I'll say this: enforce tyranny on the nation. And it's not only Bar Jagdeo. People should know it's the crime chief who was removed under David Granger for corruption. They brought him back. It's the deputy crime chief who is involved, allegedly, in serious criminal activity. I know they're sitting right now writing notes. And that deputy crime chief, right now, is allegedly the person behind what we see going on in the Guyana police force, one of the persons with regard to me. And I want him to know that I know.
Okay. So as we listen, because some people, this might be new information to them. And we'll come to some of the questions. I'm being told we have some questions. If they can get those for me, and that way I can read them off. But I had some written down here, and one of them, people are saying that okay, we see a lot that's happening. They feel that equal distribution of wealth, work, and all of those things are not being distributed, accurately. And why are we hell bent on just talking about the opposition and those subject matters which are very sensitive, that you talked about, but about people, jobs, wages, seniors, terrible accidents that are taking lives every day. See, they want to talk about those issues because it seems like we're talking about political back and forth
Mhm,
and who's doing what. And they are about, we're trying to survive here.
mhm.
We don't have time to even talk about the oil business that's happening there in Guyana, which is part of the issue of distribution of wealth and jobs. So, how do you respond to the people? Some of them know you, some of them would like to hear you focus more on those issues which people, as I say, need for survival, not this rigid back and forth grievances, if you will.
To answer that question. It's a very important question. I omitted just now to answer one part of your question that you asked previously, which is our agenda. Our main agenda is to change U.S. foreign policy towards Guyana under this government. That's the main thing. Our main objective in this country here. The question you ask is an important question. We are not the political opposition. Our organization is the United States not-for-profit organization, and it was formed with specific objectives, chief of which is justice. Justice, equality, equal rights and justice, equality. And then secondary to that is the foreign policy objective. And because our platform is justice, not only in Guyana, a lot of people don't know what we do here. Anytime anybody, most people from the Caribbean, young people that get arrested, they call CGID. We go into the communities and we have law and new programs where we take judges, the district attorney, the police chief, all the elected officials from each, not all of them collectively, but from each level of government. The congressperson, the senator, the assembly person, city council, and we talk government. What are the resources available for you? What's the role of Congress? What's the role of the DA? And we participate in programs where the district attorney and judges sit um, in venues across Brooklyn and review some petty warrants that keep our young people down. And they get them dismissed right there. We do immigration workshops. We advocate for the community. So it's not only Guyana, but specifically to Guyana. We are not the political opposition. People want us to do the opposition's work, and they ask us, how about the economy? How about agriculture? How about land use? How about corruption? Yes, corruption is part of justice and accountability. So I want to tell people, CGID is not the political opposition. We cannot advocate for all aspects of the polity. We concentrate on our mission, which is equal rights and justice. But it's important that as we advocate for the people, we respond to the needs of the people in terms of advocacy. And going forward, you'll see us take on a larger mandate in terms of corruption. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about all the contracts going to East Indians. We've been talking about massive bribery. I mean, United States media organization, Vice News, caught the vice president negotiating allegedly a 500,000 US dollar bribe. And Sue, who is his bribe collector, said that anybody who goes to invest in Guyana gotta toss up some money. That sounds like extortion to me. So it's an important question, and it has to be balanced with our mission as an organization. We're not the political opposition. The political opposition in Guyana also, what we've criticized, needs to do more to represent the interests of the people who voted for them. And they have a responsibility, a constitutional responsibility to represent those people. And I think in some aspects, they have failed. And the opposition leader needs to do more to get the opposition really holding the government accountable and the government's feet to the fire on behalf of their constituents.
So I know we've seen a lot of rallies that you've held, and you're responsible for those rallies. And it's really good when we see, we didn't realize that many Guyanese people live in Brooklyn. And of course, I don't know if you know, but Georgia is growing as well. Well over 30,000 Guyanese people are here. And I always say, even though we've left our land, we still have an interest. All of us collectively wants to go back home, wants to see our family, and say, you know what, how can I give back? So when we see the rallies, and this is coming off of a question that I got, people said, we don't see any follow up, any positive outcome. And so I wanted you to talk about those rallies And if there has been anything that the people that are asking the question have not seen in terms of what has come out of it. And it is fair to say, indeed, injustices is major. Even here in this country, we're having to deal with that, right? They don't see Guyanese, they just see color, which, as we know, people made that up and the powers that be. And so we're having to live with it, deal with it as best we can. So it's a second battle we're having to fight, right? As I say, coming to America and then being told that you're something other than and having to fight that. So what when these rallies are you put them together, I'm sure you have a team, a board, if you will, and you're doing your due diligence, if you will, with the folks here back home. It keeps coming back to the people back home because they're the ones getting the brunt of all of the issues that we've talked about and will be talking about. What are we really doing there for them?
Well, in terms of the rallies and the other public fora that we hold, the primary objective is to create awareness. Create awareness. When we did the march for the Henry Boys, it created awareness.
Okay.
Not only for Guyanese, but for other nationalities from the Caribbean, Americans, and our elected officials.
Because it was a big story. It was all around the Caribbean,
Right.
and I get that. I
Right.
get that. And
We
then
also had an anti-racism rally. 20 something thousand people participated. Members of Congress spoke. As a matter of fact, that's where the member of Congress, Hakeem Jeffries, who's now the Democratic leader,
yes,
next speaker, and
yes,
then we can expect more things from him in terms of US politics,
right.
spoke out very, very harshly against racism in Guyana.
So
Um,
let me ask you this: so is it safe to say, because we know the role Mr. Jeffries hold
mhm.
currently, is it safe to say that the United States government is aware of the things that you have these concerns for? How are they? What are they doing?
The United States government is very much aware. Some people in the government are in denial,
Yes.
and we're going to address that. We have an election coming up. I'm happy I'm in Georgia. Where I one of the things that we will do here is try to ensure that the Guyanese community engage both Congressman Hank Johnson and Nikema Williams. Nikema Williams is aware of some of the issues.
Okay.
Um, we are not satisfied with, I want to choose my words very carefully, the inaction of the State Department. And we have let President Biden know that.
Okay.
That's one of the things we did when we were in Washington. The government and Barry Jack, they thought that the Washington conference was just what they saw, right? But there were other elements behind the Washington conference. Um, the Western Hemisphere Affairs Division in the State Department needs to hold the government of Guyana accountable. I insist on that. We are in constant communication with them. Assistant Secretary of State Brian Nichols have written to me, have outlined their broad strategy in terms of what they call inclusive democracy and inclusive growth, which means everybody must benefit.
Mhm.
But I don't think the policy is focused enough. I don't think the government is being held accountable. And I don't think this United States government should do business as usual with the government of Guyana. And I know some of them are listening to this interview. And we would like to see some changes, and we'll continue to advocate for that. Listen, the government of Guyana knows what our position is. They spent $60 million to lobby against me. $60 million lobbying the United States government against me for the Washington conference. But they can't take that money and give it to the development of those young people in Guyana, right? But they can come here and spend $60 million attacking me at the United States government. I'm not sure what they achieved by that, because the Washington conference came on. We met with several members of Congress. But coming back to the rallies, there are several objectives why we have them. It's to create awareness, one, and it's to create a forum for not only Guyanese community leaders and Caribbean community leaders to express their view about what is happening in Guyana, but for elected officials. And one of the most successful events we've had is one where the Attorney General of New York warned the government of Guyana that if they continue to not only attack me, but continue to attack Guyanese for speaking out in this country, they'll be held accountable. You had the Attorney General of Guyana came to New York and advocated for me to be killed. You had, and that's not propaganda, that's a fact, right? There were tape recordings, which the police is continuing to investigate. You had Barrett Jagdeo attacking us in the diaspora. Barrett Jagdeo admitting that to instructing the Guyana police force to send an armed police officer to my house. An armed police officer. I see Barrett Jagdeo, well, he went to community high school in Russia, so he doesn't quite understand certain things. When we say that they brandish a weapon, he's trying to communicate to his supporters that we're lying because they didn't go with big guns showing. They had weapons. And if you check the police report, it's in the police report because it was not only me who saw those weapons, you had witnesses. And so we will continue to have those public events because we want to create awareness, we want to demonstrate our outrage to the government of Guyana, and we want to call on the American government to take action. When we had Black Lives Matter, those marches throughout this country, you had instant change. Gun legislations laid in draws, attracting dust in state legislatures, in city halls, and in Congress. Those demonstrations that the Black Lives Matter organization arranged after George Floyd was killed, we had instant change, had an impact. That's what we want to do in this country. And that's what they must do in Guyana as well. We want to encourage the people of Guyana to go out, stand up, exercise your constitutional rights. Barrett Jagdeo is not the father, owner, transport holder of Guyana. He's a tyrant.
Well, that's so it is public knowledge that two people came to your home.
Yes,
One of US national,
we assume.
the other I read it was an officer of the Guyana police.
Well, the Guyana police force announced that.
Yes.
Right.
So you're not so you were saying
There's no dispute
there's
about
no
it.
okay.
Right.
And in this summons, I believe there's a court date coming up, but I'll talk to you about that in a second. I
Mhm.
wanted to talk about what's in this summons.
Mhm.
And it goes back to the influence that you have and the
Mhm.
way that you have galvanized these Guyanese here in America and, of course, back home.
Mhm.
And they've used words to incite and very careful words. So, how would you say valid, I should say, are those words that they say? Because some will say you're an opportunist. And so you use certain words to rev people up, but not bring anything with it to benefit them. So in this summons,
Mhm.
is it valid? I know freedom of speech is freedom of speech. It's not hurting anyone, but we know actions can lead to that.
Mhm.
That's one. And
Mhm.
I know with any government, when you are critical of any government, you have to be careful on how you disperse the information to the
Mhm.
people. I won't say it. We know we've seen what has happened here in this country with words and how people are moved by words and the actions they take. So, saying all of that, are you an opportunist? Are you utilizing your platform with certain words to give to these folks, but you're not really giving anything to them to benefit them and their livelihood, I should say?
I want to empower the people.
Okay.
I want to empower people to exercise their constitutional rights. I want to create awareness of the atrocities in Guyana. I want the government of Guyana to know that everybody isn't intimidated. I live in the United States. If I break the law, I'll be prosecuted in the United States. The government of Guyana is trying to use the tactics they use against Mark Benchcop and against me. I'm not Mark Benchcop. Um, they come after me, I'll come after them, I'll go after them. Hard, just as hard. They are not above the law themselves. Yes, They constitute the government, but they are individuals who should be held accountable based on the rule of law. Now, if I tell the people, you have a right to protest, you have a right to confront the police, and you have a right to make sure that the police does not brutalize you, that's not inciting, that's educating. But I am in this country. So if I break the law, let the United States government prosecute me. I've met several times with the FBI. The FBI is not investigating me for breaking the law. They're investigating the guy in the government for attempting to shut me up, right? That's the first thing I want to say. Second is Barrett Jagdeo, and it's Barrett Jagdeo, and certain other people in the PPP believe they have world powers. How could I, in the United States, break the law in Guyana? What police force in the world has the power to charge a man for a crime that he allegedly committed in America? So let me tell you, let me ask Barrett Jagdeo in the Guyana Police Forces. If this is what Memorial Drive, if a man holds a Guyanese while streaming live and cuts off his head on Memorial Drive, but it is seen in Guyana, is the Guyana government and police force telling me that they're going to charge the man with murder? How about if it's a white man says something bad about Barrett Jagdeo, they won't tell the people of Guyana, go and riot. You tell me that Barrett Jagdeo, Guyana police force, is going to go and tell that white man, we charge you in Guyana? It is disrespectful, right? They know they don't have any powers. I am never going to recognize any jurisdiction in Guyana over me in America. I'm in touch with the district attorney. I'm in touch with the attorney general. I'm in touch with the Justice Department. I'm in touch with the United States government. And if any of those people at any time see that I break the law, they will tell me you broke the law and you must be held accountable, just like everybody else in America. So I want to disabuse Guyanese of this purported jurisdiction that the Guyana government and police force think that they have over Guyanese. What they want to do is intimidate people. And let me tell you how, based on my attorney's counsel to me, how dishonest the Guyana police force is. The Guyana police force issued wanted bulletins to me on several occasions based on what I say in America. In one of those bulletins, they say my last known place, in both of them, my last known place of residence is Brooklyn and Bartica. I left Bartica too, age 2. But they said Brooklyn. But I am told by my attorneys that when they researched in the courts, they discovered that the Guyana police force lied to the magistrate, tricked the magistrate into signing the summons by saying, I live in Guyana currently and I committed a crime in Guyana, because they know the magistrate doesn't have jurisdiction to issue a summons to somebody outside of Guyana. Who is being held accountable for that? That's somebody swearing to a false oath. That's perjury. The people of Guyana would allow the government of Guyana, just because Barrett Jagdeo instructed the police force to get me to violate the law, lie in court. Somewhere or the other, they have to be held accountable. So it is not about any summons and a court date for Rickford Burke. Not court in Guyana could summons me for the alleged crime that allegedly was purportedly committed in America. That's the jurisdiction for the U.S. courts. That's the jurisdiction for prosecutors in my county where I live. That's the jurisdiction of the NYPD. That's the jurisdiction of the FBI, not the courts in Guyana. So it is not about Rickford Burke committing any crime. It is about the government of Guyana committing crimes, breaking international law, violating the sovereignty of the United States. As a matter of fact, that was an act of war. For you to send a paramilitary officer that is armed into another country violates the United Nations Charter, violate international law, violate the United States. 2 significant acts in the United States. One, they were conducting espionage outside of my house, taking photographs, monitoring me. They think we don't know. A senior Guyana police officer was sent by Barrett Jagdeo in last August to conduct espionage against the United States. with regard to me. And also, there's a law in the United States that prohibits governments from doing exactly what they're doing, targeting their nationals, called the Anti-Transnational Repression and Protection Act, accountability and the Transnational Repression, Accountability and Protection Act. And they violated both of those. We continue to call on the United States government to prosecute Officer Sarabo, Mr. Wasserman, who acted as agents of the Guyana government, who trespassed on my house, threatened me by brandishing firearms, and I'm sure that there will be action.
So when that happens, and again, you're not a normal individual like some of us, right? You're prominent.
I'm a regular guy.
You're you have an attorney. What did you not have your attorney then do protocol in terms of reporting it? Because that's like anybody coming, as you said, trespassing on your persons, right? And as you said, you felt intimidated because you saw a weapon that was brandished. And so, was there a report filed?
Absolutely.
Okay. What is the outcome with that report? Is it being investigated? Because that is some heavy stuff that you just stated.
Mhm.
And I would think even us living here in this country, we will do our due diligence in reporting.
Right.
But we've crossed the whole, a whole continent.
Right.
And for them to come and seek you out in that manner with your family and so on, right?
And then publish my address.
And publish your address.
Right.
Right, because I did see that.
Right.
That was public knowledge.
Right.
And so is it a pending case? I'm sure if you can't talk about it, it's okay. But people are going to say, is it a pending
Absolutely.
case? Okay.
The police was called. There's a massive police response.
Okay.
I was on my way to church. I'm Seventh-day Adventist. There are certain things that we don't do on the Sabbath.
Right.
And so at the earliest opportunity, I informed the police. Police had a massive response. The police did a couple of things. One, the police immediately called the FBI, right? And New York City police immediately called the FBI. Also, they called the Joint Terrorism Task Force. This matter is being investigated as an act of terrorism. It's being investigated by the FBI and the NYPD, and that's the most I can say at this point in time.
Yes.
But what is most disturbing is the government then issued a statement. The police force issued a statement saying they will continue to do that with Guyanese that speak out anywhere in the world. They're the world police. And then Barjagde, the vice president, then said it. Then the attorney general said it. And I want to tell people in Georgia and in every other country, you have a right to use deadly force. And you guys know about stand your ground in this country against people who come onto your property and threaten your life and threaten your property. Deadly force in certain states. In New York, we don't have stand your ground. We have cast a law. You have to be, your life has to be in imminent danger for you to respond with deadly force. But you have a right to defend. But in Georgia and Florida and some other states, 11 other states in this country, you have a right to use deadly force. And if somebody in Georgia, if somebody rushes up somebody's step, as you guys saw in that doctored video, with guns, you have a right to use deadly force. And they are going to get people killed just to carry out the tyrannical dictates of one megalomaniac who thinks he owns the country. And then he has his minions in the Guyana police force. And notice who they use, right? They use black people. I'm not afraid to say it. They use black people to target black people. And that's one of the things we've been talking to the United States government about. Because they're like, oh, we have all these black ministers. I said, those are the people who they send out to talk, but ask them what's going on in their homes with their families. Ask them what's going on in their ministries. They have to say that. They know that the government is racist. You mean to tell me the prime minister doesn't know that there's racism in Guyana? Right? You just look at the contracts. 99% of the contracts go to East Indians. So why we mustn't talk about that? Who's Barjagde that we can't talk about the over 1,000 black men that he murdered? Who are these people that we can't say you're using the oil resources only for the East Indian collective? And let me say this, they're perfectly fine East Indians that I love, who my friends who are not racist, who are patriotic, who respect us, who don't believe in what the PPP is doing. And we respect those people and we embrace them. We ask them to join us in our campaign to root out PPP racism in Guyana.
That was actually one of my follow-up questions because I was
I'm
going
seeing through your brain.
I was going to ask of that per se, and if there is a so to say like a sister organization to deal with the other issues I brought up, because I know you made it very clear what your premise is and what your organization is about, and with all due rights, because we are still dealing with those atrocities and things that are happening. I went home in October. Um, I saw some things that I, like yourself, very passionate about, that I felt need to be rectified. I remember people say I would go home and I would see all Guyanese on a plane. My plane didn't have Guyanese on it. It had other people on it. And I said, well, they're not just coming for show. There's something that is attracting them there. We know what the something is. But my take, and a lot of the people who love Guyana, I have to keep saying that we want to see our people do better with their lives. We want to see more being afforded to them for their lives and their children and their legacy.
Indeed.
So, and for the brothers and sisters, I'm sort of, my grandfather's East Indian. My father is a black man. That is what, over 80% of people are like that in Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see these things, and as you said, we have some that will join arms with you, so to speak, not close fist, and said, how can we help? It's a beautiful thing, but also organizations that will say, let us help you on this end of the aisle. Right.
Let
And we're going to
Dalton.
have Dalton come in
Exactly.
and segue as we segue into that. So Dalton, Ben,
Yes.
my dear friend here, we'll come back to Mr. Burke in a second. If you want to touch on that other side of that organization, because this is a lot of stuff. We can't rectify all of this in 1 hour, but at least we can touch light on what you all are doing, because he is here in Georgia, and I was going to get to that in a bit. Why is he here? And what is your affiliation as we're talking about the betterment of Guyanese?
All right, let me prefer this by first of all saying thanks to Mr. Lawrence Prescott for hosting this event at CTLV, the Caribbean Live Television, and allowing us to use this platform to promote and inform, educate, promote our concerns or objectives as to regards to the atrocities of what's going on in our country with respect to human rights violations. As Guyanese, we are all very much concerned about it. My organization is concerned about it. I'm the chairman of an organization called Concerned Guyanese Patriots of Georgia. And we basically, our mission is basically to foster, promote pride and dignity and respect for all the people of Guyana, and to work for the protection and of the human rights of all Guyanese, to help empower people to realize their rights and to assist these responsible for upholding such rights, ensuring that they are implemented. So the purpose of our organization is basically to educate, document, inform, publicize human rights atrocities and violations in Guyana. And we do so without fear or favor because we feel there's need for such an organization. Like yourself, like other Guyanese, we came over here. Some of us were basically initially only concerned with assimilating into the society. Hence, a lot of us, we did what was necessary to do so, to promote ourselves and our family, to have them acclimated to the society, whereby they can prosper, grow, and develop. And throughout In doing so, you may have missed, like myself, part of what is going on in your country. Um, the need to take a little bit more introspection in terms of what is happening, because we are so caught up in going to university, and all these things are good. But let me, answering your question, digress a little into initially when you went into Rickford and how we came about involved in this movement. I initially came up in the trade union movement in Guyana. And incidentally, myself and Rickford crossed similar paths years gone by. I remember Rickford being an intern at the Guyana Agri-Industrial Bank. And I was working at a sister institution because he was a younger guy there. I saw him there. I was aware of him. But then in 1994, there was a Guyana Day at a Seventh Days Adventist church in Brooklyn. And I've been there with a friend. I was also at that time an Adventist. And I met Rickford speaking to one of the past Minister of Housing of Guyana. This is Leroy Scotland. And Rickford was saying he was being so much informed, he was giving us so much of information in terms of what is happening in Guyana politically. I was amazed, and I said, my God, what have I been doing all these years? This is somebody for me to be partnership in. This is somebody for me to embrace. This is somebody to me for build friendship, so I can learn a lot more about my country and disseminate information and share information and ideas. And so I started making notes of it. We became a little bit friends and so on. He spoke about Mark Benskop being targeted and imprisoned. Rickford went to my church at the time I was going to, and when Mark Benskop was incarcerated in Guyana falsely by the PPP government, Rickford was one of the few guys that stand up for him and stand up for other Guyanese who were marginalized, who have their rights taken away from them, and came out to the Guyanese nationalities in the United States and other Caribbean, in the other Caribbean people in the diaspora, and said to them, this is what is going on in my country, and this is how we can help. And he had solicit funds so that we can send funds so that Mark Benskop could have had some amount of legal representation so that he could be freed. And that was another commendable thing that I saw in him. And and because of
That's
this,
Bar Jack Deal.
it seems to be coming from Guyana. Sorry, probably is. Could you put this extra? Sorry, I don't need this. Yes. This had sort of increased my curiosity in terms of what was happening in my country as a whole. And I started taking some note about it. I moved from New York to here. And as more things were coming out, I saw the atrocities being happening to our people homes being bulldozed without due process. And they use broad terms like eminent domain without going through the process, really, of having these people removed from their homes, etc. Also, the deaths of people. I have happened to being in the military in the Guyana Defense Force at one time, which I'm proud of. And it hurt me to when there was an ex-officer that was standing in front of Parliament building, and he was gunned down for exercising his democratic right as a citizen. There were so much of atrocities that happened to people in our country for standing up for the basic human right, the right to assembly, the right to protest, right? The right to enjoy your life like any other citizen, irrespective of your ethnicity. the right to work. I had one attorney in Guyana that said to me, Dalton, I was fired by the PPP government. And let me just say this. We in the United States here, there's a clear distinction between the state and the other agencies, right? In Guyana, there's nothing like that. The police force, the GDF, has all been politicized in such a way that they just adhere to the dictates of whatever the PPP government says. And that is bad for our country. That is bad for the development. That is bad for the psyche of our people. Our people have one of the highest rates of mental illness in the world, one of the highest suicidal rates. Could back to the Guyana government tell me why in a country that is supposedly ascending in such a high plateau of one of the fastest growing economies have that to deal with your people? So what is happening here is that they're just putting out figures about the GMP going this and we accelerating and that. But in actuality, the services, the wealth is not being equitably distributed to the people. And this has nothing to do with your level of expertise or your educational level or how well you are equipped to be employed in certain aspects. It has to do basically with what race. Mr. Burke pointed out that in a number of instances, those contracts are given to people, 90% are given to one ethnic group, which is ridiculous. It's insulting. It's grieving. It's grievous to even think about. It means what you're doing is enriching one ethnic group and at the same time pauperizing, impoverishing the other one. This is not the Guyana that I grew up in. And this is one of the main reasons why myself and other people in our organization of like minds have come together and say we have to do something about this. We have to join agencies and people of like minds to disseminate the atrocities that is happening in our country to our people. And that is one of the reasons why we have got involved, and that is one of the reasons why I'm involved.
You are here in Atlanta. You are going to be having a town hall on Sunday. Why did you come to Atlanta?
Well, I'm in Atlanta for other reasons as well, but as
Okay.
I'm here, I'm making use of the opportunity.
All right.
Um, one of the things that we've decided to do is to go throughout this country to talk about what is happening in Guyana. We've done it in New York several times. We did it in Washington last September, and now we're in Atlanta. We did it before in Atlanta, but we're now not only engaging Guyanese in Atlanta, we're engaging the elected officials, and we're going to be engaging the other Caribbean nationals. It's important. It's important that we mobilize the diaspora of the Caribbean region to influence their governments that what they are accepting in the Caribbean with regard to the government of Guyana must stop. I'm engaged with several people in Jamaica, in Trinidad, in St. Lucia about this issue. We're now going to not only be talking with US government officials, we're going to target, we're going to talk with Caribbean heads of government. We will have Guyanese in those countries talk with the Caribbean heads of government. We're embarking on an international campaign. The government of Guyana has a lot of resources. They have oil money, right? One of the things Dalton pointed out is the issue of contracts, right? It's wider than that. Whenever the PPP goes into power, their governance policy is people who oppose them cannot benefit from the services or of the government or the resources of the country. That's not a controversial statement. That's a fact. Whenever the People's Progressive Party goes into government, they govern for their own ethnic collective, their own supporters. When President Granger was in power, he didn't do that. He even kept, which I think was silly, Barrett Jagdeo and Donald Ramatar secretary. The woman who worked as the presidential secretary for those two former presidents was his secretary, right? So the PPP government governs Guyana as if it's theirs. Listen to Barrett Jagdeo when he talks, right? We give out 10,000 house lots as if that's an accomplishment. That's the duty. That's the people's house lots. You're not doing them a favor. We put up 300 street lights. We did the streets. Good God, you're collecting the taxpayers' dollars to do that. Guyanese, these people are not doing you any favors when they perform the duties of a government. And they have conditioned the country to a state where the people feel that the slightest responsibility of the government is carried out. It's a favor that Barrett Jagdeo and the government is doing to them. Now, let's look at the cost of living, right? I want to make it. The cost, people can't afford basic food items in Guyana. People are crying out every day. You know what they do? They're going to give people a hamper, 2 pounds sugar, some flour, some rice, and so on. Yeah. And they're like, we give out because we care. I heard Priya Manichan, the Minister of Education, talking about, we build schools because we care. You're building schools because that's the responsibility of the government to educate our children. The other thing I want to mention, and I shut up and let you ask the question. I noticed the government is promoting a staggered reintroduction of free education at the university. Them take it away. When we were growing up, education was free. University was free. The PPP government took away free university education from the people, and now they're promoting it as an achievement. We are now approaching free education. They took it away from you. Guyanese, they take away your ability to go to school. When a government declines to educate the nation, it declines to educate young people, it's a cardinal, unforgivable sin. Because you know why? Many young people with ability, with brilliance, with excellence couldn't go to school because the People's Progressive Party government denied them. And now they're spending a little bit of the oil resources. They're taking back some from not giving to their supporters and shoving it to the university. They're not even funding the university. As a matter of fact, I noticed they're de-emphasizing University of Guyana and they're now emphasizing some gold university. I'm pretty sure if you look, Barrett Jagdeo or somebody owned that, right? But I want to make sure I register right now to the young people of Guyana that this PPP government took away your ability to have an education at a university. And don't let them fool you now by saying that they're going to partially give it back to you. It's your right. It's your right. Free education is in the Constitution. It's your right. They took it away. And now it's looking bad. They have all this money and they're just throwing a little bit of breadcrumbs and say, we're doing something very good for the country. We're doing something good. We're now staggering in free education. They're fulfilling their responsibility as a government under the Constitution.
Are you able to go to Guyana in front of Parliament and state this?
No.
And there's a reason why I ask you that.
No. Me, you mean, when you say me, you mean the people?
No,
you. Me personally?
You. Because you are the voice for the voiceless.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm intentional with that question.
Mm-hmm. Can I answer it? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can I answer it?
Yeah.
I would love to go to Guyana. I would love to. I know they'll try to kill me. As a matter of fact, there was a team that went down to Guyana, this fact-finding mission. And somehow it was rumored that I was coming on the team. And this government of Guyana hired a group to kidnap me, drive me to the East Bank, the Susdike Highway, and police officers were going to come and execute me. You know where I got that information from? Not the streets, not rumors from Facebook. It was a tip that went to US law enforcement. So I'm not making that up. Right? But listen, if they want me to stop talking, they will have to kill me, and they can't do that. And if they do that, the people of Guyana know what to do. That's all I say. The people of Guyana know what to do. Listen, it is time for change in Guyana. If they kill one more person in Guyana, they shouldn't be in government. The international community should make sure that they're not in government. The people of Guyana should make sure they're not in government. If the Guyana police force continues to do, could you imagine that? The Guyana police force is sitting down there making up stuff. It is one thing for them to fabricate crimes and pin it on people in Guyana. But they're now so bold that they could sit down and say, all right, let me charge Burke with treason, sedition, this, that. You know how bold they are? Gail Teixeira, the minister of whatever she is, I sued her. My attorneys in Guyana sued her because she called me a criminal. I was never arrested in my life. 5 criminals are in the government of Guyana. Kwame McCoy is a convicted criminal. He was convicted of a crime by the courts of Guyana. The president had 19 fraud charges when he was elected. He went to every court in Guyana and asked them to throw it out, and the court ordered him to stand trial because the evidence was substantial. The Attorney General did the same thing. The Minister of Finance did the same thing. All of them are East Indians. They are past black people to be looking at us and calling us criminals. You know who did that? The Jim Crow racists. Some people in this country right now, and they're the ones who are advising Barry Jagdeo. They're the ones who were their and I'm not making it up. Donald Trump's political advisors were the political advisors to the PPP in the last elections. No wonder Barry Jagdeo is a tyrant, right? No wonder Barry Jagdeo is a racist. He's patterning himself off of the Jim Crow era in America.
What is our time, if y'all can keep us up with time?
But hold on, let me come back to going to Guyana.
Yes.
I would love to go to Guyana. I would go to Guyana. I would dare them to do something, and let us create an international incident that would end their rule. They don't control the world. You know why they're scared of me? I have the ability to influence people. I have the ability to bring to bear what people believe in. Our rights, our freedoms, our liberties. That's what I'm advocating for the people to exercise. And they're scared of that. Again, Henry Jeffrey wrote that they feel they must discredit me because I'm too close to powerful people in the United States.
Okay. I didn't see any of the
That's why they're creating those fabricated charges.
I didn't see any of the questions here on our feed. So I'll go back to some of the others that I have here. You know, we're here in America, and you know, I have to say that because I see parallel in some of the activities. And at the end of the day, we all know it takes the people, right? A democracy, not autocracy, as you stated. And I would hate, you know, I still am a bit I have optimism for Guyana. And I understand when you change hands and different government go into place, people tend to look out for each other. I understand that. And you remove people like one of my dear friends who was in the past administration. I said, oh my goodness, they didn't deserve you, but wouldn't say his name. And he was passionate. And I'll tell you, because I was in his office, I saw the compassion he had for helping. And they let him go. And I said, if they let you go, my God, we're in trouble. I'm about our young people here and there because my daughter is American born and she knows she's part of Guyana, right? And you and I, everybody here, I remember one point in time, I used to say, how can I go back home? And I will tell you this, from the time I left my country at 13, I'm 52 now. I went first time just full of optimism and just wanting to give back the education and the expertise and all that America gave me. Because I came as a young child. And as I said, people looked at me as though I looked down on them. I didn't like that. And I said, I'll try this again. I went back in 2019 and I spoke to a delegation and I spoke to the police force, women and men. And I left with some very encouraging words. And they liked what I had to say. Because my words.
When was that again?
2019. I went for a women's conference. And then I was privy to access the GDF. My mother worked at Eve Leary, by the way. And I said, I am in your stomping ground. And she was like, what are you doing there? I said, I'm speaking to the up and coming of women police and men. And I spoke to both of them. Still have those tapes. And my thing was, we are bringing forth this entity, if you will, that is to protect and serve without any biases. And I preface that, I stress that to them. And their head of police was impressed with what I had to say because I don't mince my words. I'm about all Guyanese.
Who was the head of police? Leslie James, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Not Clifford Hicken.
No.
Yes. You said that no very emphatically, but go ahead. Go right ahead.
No, I mean, because that's he wasn't. But I, many of us, like yourself, Mr. Burke, we want to help with all that we have. Because I want to be able to say I can always go back home. I love my country. And I understand your passion. I understand your drive. And I think people will say, well, he does it a different way and I don't like how he do it. Now, I know you can't tell people how to have a drive and a passion. You just can't. But I know sometimes with the things that are not going the way it should for Guyanese, you will have to get a little bit more aggressive and you will have to be very direct. And sometimes some people just don't like it, right? I want the young people that are looking at us, whether it's home or here, to know that they have people they can look up to, people who can mentor them, who can empower them. Because, the word empowerment is a broad word. And, as we all say, when you empower a village, you empower women, you empower a nation, right? And
that's true.
I just want that. I know it may seem far-fetched, but I'm optimistic. And I will say to you, you said you're locking arms with different people and individuals in this country and home. But I want to ask, do we have anybody? And I'm just asking because I don't know. No one sent this question. I'm asking this question. Are there people in place that you have installed that can sit with our government? Yeah. That can sit with our government face to face.
Let me write that word down.
Yes,
installed.
Installed.
Go ahead.
Yes. That they can go to our government home, right? And say, this is what we are demanding because we placed you in power. I know some will say, well, I didn't vote for them. At the end of the day, everybody has to live together in that country, right? At the end of the day, no matter who is in power. But you have to still remind whomever is in power their responsibility to the people to make sure and ensure that democracy continues. Do you have people on the ground there that you can say you are mentoring and you're giving them the tools and resources that will help to ensure the betterment of their lives? Because the people in America here will probably quick to say, some of them, yes, they may show up to a rally. Well, I can't go, I got to work. But you still need to have people on the ground, right? Because you said you can't go for fear of your life.
I'm not fearful of my life. My family doesn't want me to, but and the
And
U.S.
so
government doesn't want.
understanding
But
so,
but I want them to know I'm not
yes.
afraid of them.
But I want to know who is back home that can say we're going to carry on this torch because Mr. Burke can't come and because of fear of his life. We want to pick the baton up, if you will, and continue this because it is a heavy task. It is a heavy task. And the things that you have mentioned, it was public information. I was reading it, crying, right? Because I know I didn't see that type of violence. I didn't. My uncle perished when they had the uprising. He did. They couldn't tell if he was Indian or black because he looked like both, right? So that is dear to my heart. I am not about picking sides. I'm about what is for the people overall. I'm about making sure that they get what they so deserve. Because if people are coming into that country, we know they're the ones benefiting, not the people who build that country and is a part of it. And we expect that all should be shared collectively to everybody.
Important.
Right?
That's thanks to that. Thank you very much for asking that question. Of course, we have established 2 youth organizations in Ghana. I'm not sure that we give them the tools, we give them the resources, but we did. We created an organization that had over 500 young people in Guyana. It's still there. Somebody sitting in this room who's now a PhD is a product of that organization. He's laughing. He's not a PhD as a result of that organization. He's a PhD because of his brilliance. But let me say this. We have to develop the country. I love my country. I became involved in my country at age 16 in politics. I've worked for ministers of government at that age. I've worked for the president of Guyana. I've worked for the president of Guyana. I want to say that.
Very much documented, yes.
Good. So as a young person since then, I had a vision for my country. I want to see my country. Why Jamaica is so prominent in the world and Jamaica is so small. And Guyana, where the CARICOM grouping is headquartered, and we're now an oil-producing country, a country that has one of the largest GDPs and economic growth rates in the world. Why aren't we so more advanced? It's because of the politics. And I'm making a very objective statement. Every time the People's Progressive Party goes into power, we have violence, we have decadence, we have crime, we have destruction of our rights, and we have destruction of of democracy. They can't rule the country. What we need in Guyana is shared governance. We need everybody participating in the government. South Africa, when just after apartheid had that kind of government. We can't live anymore like this. Guyana's not going to develop. The PPP can't develop Guyana by suppressing black people. That's what they're doing, whether they like it or not. The country's not going to develop. I want to see a country where I must sit in Georgetown and drive straight to Brazil and go on to Colombia and whatever. I'm from Essequibo. I want to drive through Essequibo like I'm in Georgia. I want to see massive skyscrapers like Trinidad in my country. Why don't we have that? Why don't we have bridges, bridging all different parts of Guyana, tunnels? Now that we have, this government is going to say, well, we have an infrastructure project, but there's no human development or company's infrastructure project. Who are the people building these projects? Their people. Who are the people getting the contracts? Their people. Who are the people building? It's a one-sided economy, right? And like I said, I'm not afraid to talk about race. And their supporters now must exercise the responsibility of telling this government, you can't leave my neighbor behind. You can't develop the country for us Indians and leave the Amerindians behind. You can't leave the black people behind. We want to see our country developing. That's why we're speaking out. We're not speaking out because we hate Bar Jack Dale. I don't give a France about Bar Jack Dale. I care about my country and I care about our people, whether they're East Indians or blacks. But I don't care about the East Indians who are racist, and I don't care about blacks who are racist. And we must move away from this tendency of saying people are racist when they speak out against racism. That's not racism. Racism is when you have power and you use it to promote your own race and to promote hate against the other side. That's racism. I can't be racist. I don't have no power. Jack Dare is racist because he is using his racism to influence government policy, right? Now, one of the things, I had a very sobering conversation with a very senior government of Guyana official, somebody I have a lot of respect for. And he said to me, Rickford, your task now, you've built the following, you have a massive following, you have the attention of the world. How could you get the people who are against you for you? And I said, why must we always have to change? Why black people got to change their position in Guyana? Why can't the government meet with us, meet with black leaders? This government has not one day met with any black leader. As a matter of fact, Jack, they be like, why we got to meet with them? Why we Guyanese? We're Guyanese. Never. They took away the funding from Christian labor colleges that educate black people, black young people. They took away the funding from Patriotic that promotes black culture. They took away the funding from AGDA that promotes African culture. They have tried to destroy every single thing for black people in Guyana. And we can't speak? Who stops the Indian Arrival Committee from speaking? They don't want me to talk about respecting the rights of black people when I'm black, but the East Indians can talk about it, my friends can talk about it, and I promote that. They have a right to do that. That's their culture, that's who they are. I am me, I'm an African Guyanese, and if I see injustice across the board, I'll speak out against it, but particularly against people that look like me, I have a responsibility to speak out against it. So we must ask the government of Guyana, since they came to power, there's a cry internationally about racism. Why haven't they met with us one time to say what it is you want? Give us a program or a project or a policy paper, a strategy for empowering the African Guyanese community. They're not interested in that. They're interested in promoting East Indian supremacy. They have never met with one black organization. As a matter of fact, you know what they did? When Patriotic spoke out that they took away the funding, they got to gather some black minions, some house there and say, hey, listen, come, we want y'all replace Patriotic. We're going to break up Patriotic. And you're all going to replace Patriotic, and we're going to write the UN and tell them you're the new representative. That's what they do. If they had an opportunity to break up CGID and get two of their house slaves to replace that's what they do. Every time you speak out against the PPP, they try to destroy you. They just file something in the court, say, when I was in Guyana, I raped somebody, I thief money, and this. I was an assistant to the president of my country. My father was a police officer. I was a teenager. I lived in the police compound. What nonsense you telling the court? Now, that attorney must, in this country, would have been disbarred, right? But in Guyana, he is celebrated because he is representing the ethnocracy that sees us as criminals. That's what they want to do. They want to project black people as criminals. They want to project me as criminals because they think the American politicians would run away from me. Jack, they say he's a criminal and gone. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And the people in Guyana who repeat this stuff, look, for instance, right? I'm in America. You have this guy, Critics, who I call a jabon of an ass. Every day, attacking, tearing down women. He attacking a former magistrate the other day, Gita Chanjan, a former magistrate. And nobody in the PP could say anything. Where's the police? Where's the cybercrime law? It does not apply to East Indians and supporters of the PPP because it is the police force is only to police black people. That's a fact. You can't run away from it. Amanza Walton Desir, Simona Brooms, a host of black politicians filed cybercrime complaints against people in the PPP. Not one investigation. Not one. Not one. Everybody who the cybercrime law has applied to has been black. And the people who have, the East Indians who have attacked people racially have never been prosecuted. There's a young Indian boy that came on Facebook and said, Harlem black man should get poisoned and dead. I don't know if you remember that. The Ethnic Relations Committee wrote him a nice love note. Dear whatever, let's say Syringa, that is bad. Don't say that. Could you apologize? He come back. I apologize. I apologize. I didn't mean that. You think a black person could say that? They'll be sitting at Brickdam. They'll be sitting at Brickdam. We have to remove the politics from the Guyana Police Force. They're putting out the Guyana Police Force issued a statement saying, I'm a fugitive from justice in Guyana. I haven't been to Guyana in 25 years. How am I a fugitive? But Barjack, they told them to say that. Okay. How can they police a nation when the nation doesn't have confidence in them? How can they police a nation when they're dishonest? How can they police a nation when they're criminals? They commit crimes.
In Parliament, do you have any allies that, you don't have to name them, I'm just asking a general question, that you can say have your back?
I don't want to personalize it, but yes.
Okay.
Multiple, even in the PPP. Okay. I have people in the PPP, ministers who have agreed with me.
Yes.
I know a minister who was angry when the Guyana Police Force issued a bulletin because he was instructed by a senior person to try to organize a meeting with me. And that's when I believe they probably deliberately did that to score that meeting. But he's like, how could you be wanted when we want to meet with you? I received a request from the president of Guyana to meet with me in New York when he came for the General Assembly a few years ago.
That was my next question.
Right? Mm-hmm. And I wrote back. I could read the letter right now. I wrote them back and I said, I would not meet with anybody alone, but my board is willing to meet with them and a delegation from the board will meet. And these are the things we want to talk about. You're not going to come and meet with us. They probably will deny it in a statement just now, right? But that's a fact. I talk with people in the government. People in the government call me, right? To me, the most dangerous and poisonous person in the government is Barjack. I believe Barjack is an impediment to the success of the People's Progressive Party government. If Barjack is removed from that government, I think they will do well. I think there are people in the PPP who are not racist. I think there are people in the PPP who want to see inclusion. But Barjack is the poison. Guyana cannot develop if he's involved in politics. The PPP cannot be successful, and the nation would destroy the nation. Barjack's influence on the PPP is destructive to the nation of Guyana.
I remember our past president, Burnham and Chetty Jagan, opposing team, I'll use it like that, but still friends and still had respect for one another. Some people will disagree, but it was a fact. They respected each other. They respected the role that they held. And this is why some of us, because we're in this age group, will say, this is how we remember our Guyana.
What are you talking about? I'm in my 20s.
Right? And I know people can say, well, gosh, we will never see that again. Because of the very things that you're discussing right now. I'm about next step. I'm about, and other people as well. Next step, get an alignment of folks on the other side, because some people won't want to be public with it. You know, people tend to help sometime on the back end, and that's okay.
Diplomacy is most effective behind the
scenes. Yeah. Because that's what I want, Mr. Burke. I want that as a next step. Whomever is going to lead it. You know, we all can contribute however we can. Many of us go home, and like I said, when I went home this last time for me was a little bit more optimistic for me. I went and I hosted a business.
That's in 2019 or
no, just October of last year.
Okay.
Dear friend of mine, Stacey Mollison, she's been digging the ditch, so to speak. And we are part of the Guyana Association of Georgia, and we have that international committee that we were a part of. And because, you know, we wanted to see how can we go back. However, I'm about job creation, right? I saw where I can do that. I saw
the conference. I know it was,
right?
at the Pegasus.
Yes, sir. Yes. I'm about, because I see the need. I don't want to hear people ain't want to work. I will find the people who do want to work. See, that's how I
Right.
roll.
Right.
Because I am not about talking. I am about finding. I've built teams here in this country. I have platforms here. I empower.
Basically, you have a
That's
vision,
yes.
right? You have a vision. Are people allowed to pursue their vision in Guyana? Listen, I agree with you. I would work with you. I would work with anybody. I also have a vision. We have a vision. The young people of Guyana have a vision. If we were to come together and put our thoughts together, listen to your vision, listen to my vision, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be far apart. And then we implement a national strategy to develop the country based on the collective vision of the people. The problem with that is that the People's Progressive Party government is opposed to that. Two hands, it takes two hands to clap. So you can't develop your vision alone.
Understand.
The PPP government thinks that they can develop their vision alone. It's not going to work. The country's not going to develop. What will happen is you'll have lopsided advancement, meaning Port Morant going to get university, Tain going to get hospital, Lenora going to get hospital. But what happened to Iflat and Stroudtville and Buxton and Golden Grove and Lancaster and Manchester and Liverpool, right? And Blackbush, sorry, but Blackbush gonna get a hospital. And Hope Tongue and Lovelas and these, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
The point is that whenever the People's Progressive Party is in government, they don't believe the opposition must play a role in governance, play a role in the development of the country. They don't believe that opposition members are or supporters are their constituents as a government. They don't believe they should consult with the opposition. The Constitution requires that the president say he's not doing it. How can we develop the country? How can we have unity? How can we pursue the objective that you're talking about, that mission of developing our country for posterity? You spoke about the young people who are looking at us, want us to lead. Which young person in Ghana is impressed by Barjak? They may be their supporters. But objectively speaking, how can you be impressed with a leader that sits every Thursday, denigrate women, calls black women? He has no respect for black professional women. None. Calls Cathy Hughes a low life. Calls everybody name. Says there's no black good lawyer in Guyana. Darmlal went to one, right? He attacked Nigel Hughes. He attacked Royce Delford. When Darmdal was accused of rape, he went a black lawyer, right? So we must have some value. The point I'm making is that he sits down there like a Hitler, a bootleg Hitler, every Thursday and tears down every black leader, every professional woman that speaks out against him, tears down the opposition. What is that? What is that? How can we advance of a country as a country? How can black leaders feel compelled to work with anybody like that to develop the country? It's not going to happen. That's why I said Barra Jagdeo is an impediment to advancement in Guyana, impediment to inclusion in Guyana, impediment to the development of the country. And they should retire him from politics. As a matter of fact, I think he deserves to be in jail rather than be in government. That was a little political, sorry.
Oh no, that's all right. I mean, listen, some of the stuff you're talking needs to be said, and it's no secret. But I had this thought in my head. I wasn't in this country, and neither were you. But remember the 1955 bus boycott?
I don't remember, but I've read it. Yes.
Okay. Here's where I'm going to make a comparison as it relates to the people. And when people speak and act, what can happen and what can be dismantled. That was about racial segregation.
Mhm.
One woman says, today I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to have you treat me as less than. And we had Dr. Martin Luther King and others says, and they were in the minority, we know it, but they were in the minority. And they said, we are going to have our men protect our women and children. We are not going to take the bus anymore until they treat us as what? Equal.
Mhm.
And what happened to that system? It bankrupted. Because on that bus, No more blacks were riding that bus to fund an oppressive system,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What am I saying? I'm saying that as we talk about trying to this vision that we all want for Guyana, with all that we see happening and all the disparities and racial segregation, which that word I don't remember growing up with, but here it is, we're having to talk about it. Jobs, and a host of other things that we know should make Guyana great, right? That should make our land great. So what do? You dismantle an idea, you dismantle a system,
I agree.
you dismantle, and this is how you do it. Funding is everything. When you stop funding, a lot of things stop.
But hear
A
what?
lot of people pay attention.
Hear what? In Guyana, the psychology is different. We're socialized differently. In Guyana. So, look for instance, the PP has destroyed the unions. Why? When they go, if let's say the nurses decide to strike, right? They will incentivize some of the nurses not to strike, and then they'll pit both sides against each other. Then they will punish you. Punish you. The courts just ruled because you know what? The nurses striked. They took away all their benefits. The courts ordered the government to reinstate. You know what the government did? Appealed. Appealed. Appealed the denial of the rights of the nurses to exercise their
I
constitutional,
do remember that. I do
right?
remember
The constitutional
reading
right.
that, yes.
Then they'll go into the villages, for instance, and pay and bribe people, right? 2 people here, 3 people there, 3 people there. Young people gonna send money, gonna make whatever it is. I am yet to see anybody in Guyana counteract this PPP tendency, not tendency, love for bribing people to get what they want, right? We have to find a way to reach our young people for them to understand what's going on and for them to value themselves and to see themselves as a person with human dignity, right? So, what you said there is important, but I think the society has been so conditioned to accept mediocrity and accept a little bit of money here and a little bit of money. The government knows that they could go and bribe some of these same people when they become activists. Get them a little money here, pit this one against the one, pay this one, come into the black community, pay some black person to go and beat up you. And I mean, that's what's going on.
Mhm.
So the Guyanese society, from the time the PPP came to power, from the time Jagdeo got involved in politics at the leadership level of the government, has completely destroyed our society. It's a cantankerous society. It's a dangerous society. It's a dog-eat-dog society. Everybody eating out each other's throat. Everybody selling out each other. Everybody, for a little bit of money. I'm not putting down the Guyanese society. I'm saying the PPP has the ability to control some of the people that way because they've conditioned them. And how do we dismantle that? You use the right word. How do we dismantle that? We dismantle by creating opportunities, equal opportunity. We dismantle by education and awareness. And we dismantle by giving the people hope, right? And this is one of the things that I feel that the opposition in Guyana, yes, I criticize the opposition as well, has, to me, to some extent, failed. They're not giving the people hope, right? I don't know what the opposition has in store for the little Indian boy and the little black girl on the west coast of Demerara or on the quarantine. What's the hope for our young people? Even the government. The government ain't getting nobody no hope. The government is hoping they could get more money to thief, right? And it comes back to a vision, a shared vision. It can't be a one-sided vision. Our country will remain divided, remain underdeveloped until we have shared responsibility for the government of the country. Both sides must be involved. And we have to change the constitution. The constitution gives too much power to the government. I happen to think when Donald Rumsfeld was in power, that there was if that matter had gone to the Caribbean Court of Justice, the government would have been struck down. There's no way you could have a minority government in Guyana. The laws don't permit it.
Hmm.
To me, if you look at that, that's why he had to call elections. Because if I were the opposition, then from the first day you come to parliament, I move in a no confidence motion again. You ain't governing because you don't have the mandate. So we have to change the constitution and we have to have a shared vision. We have to have a shared vision. And in that shared vision, we have to recognize that different populations have different priorities. We see what the East Indian population priority is, and there's nothing wrong with that. They must have organizations to promote their development. They must have organizations to promote their culture. But the organizations on the other side must be allowed to thrive. And the government must include in its national strategy objectives to empower other communities, blacks or Chinese, Amerindians. There's nothing wrong with that. In this country, we do it.
Yes.
But in Guyana, they conflate that with racism. So we will only develop when we recognize that, yes, we're one people, one nation, and we have one destiny, but we're different people with different cultures, different priorities, different needs. The African Guyanese community needs equity. There's no equity. We need equal rights and justice, and we need equality. We need equal opportunity in the economic sphere. We need equal opportunity in the political sphere. It's not there. So, is this government prepared to live with a disadvantaged black community, shut them out from economic survival of the country, continue this noose where they're choking them, a noose of subjugation? Or are they going to come up with a strategy to empower black businesses? They don't do that. You know what they do? Oh, you supporting Burke? We're going to shut you down. We're going to marginalize you. We're going to take away your business. You supporting the PNC? We're going to shut down your business, don't give you contracts, stifle you, kill your business. That's what this government does. So the government, if it wants, like it pretends to be balanced, if it wants to be fair, they must come to a realization that you have to empower the black community. You can't have all East Indian businesses. You can't have all East Indians getting contracts. You can't, because you will have resistance. And they're building up a whole generation of young people who will hate them. And when those young people become of age, they can't govern them. So somebody in the people got to wake up and understand you have to implement programs to empower the black community. That's what this country is the greatest country ever existed. And their budget billions of dollars to empower black businesses, to promote black culture, because they realize the disparities that you just mentioned. Guyana has to do the same thing. We can't run away from it. There is an economic disparity. And it comes from not only cultural preferences, it comes from active suppression, apartheid policies of this government.
I'm not sure if do we know if our phone number is working? I didn't give out this number. I know we were so in this robust discussion.
What a conversation. We need more of these conversations.
Is it all right? So 678-661-1819. Let me repeat that. 678-661-1819. We have some time if anybody wants to call in. I had another question from someone else. And they said, I know we keep talking about the Indo-Guyanese and the Afro-Guyanese, but last he checked, we were of 6 races in Guyana. And his question was, is it just the Afro-Guyanese that are having these issues, or is it across the board? I know we had a terrible, terrible, tragic fire in region. What region was that?
9.
Mm-hmm. And we lost 20 young ladies that they represent another race.
Yes.
Correct? And they were protesting last night, if I'm not correct, right? They were protesting. And so people are saying, we get it, we understand. And this person was just saying, are the other races which he hates to use that word, but because of
Mhm.
how, our country is built, we have to still talk about it and include them.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're promoting inclusion, right? And that's why I also mention, I also mention, I also mention Amerindians. I mentioned the Chinese. I mentioned other small minorities. The issue we have, though, the reality is that we are socialized with our politics into two different races, right? So you have the majority of East Indians support PP and the majority of blacks support the. But the Amerindian people are marginalized too. Amerindians are marginalized. Look, they're fighting for this fund. Imagine this government is selling carbon credits or whatever it is, and it's affecting the community, and they're not giving the people the money, right? It's probably on somebody on the East Coast by Sparnam bed or something, right? Pradoville, it must be in Pradoville or something like that. Amerindians have a right to equality as well. And that's why I continue to advocate for those who will want to listen for a shared vision. You have to have a strategy where you go to all these leaders in these communities that represent the people,
Okay.
and you get their vision and you include it in a national strategy to develop the country.
Absolutely.
And
That's okay. No call. Okay. All right. Yes, yes.
yeah.
So, final thoughts, Mr. Burke. We unpacked a lot. I was enlightened. I'm sure the viewers and listeners were enlightened, because that's what we gave people platforms for that, to bring light and to inform people. Some people, probably, I've seen comments here saying they haven't been home in forever. So some of them don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
We thank Caribbean Life TV and Caribbean Life Radio for having this platform so people can hear.
Absolutely.
And with anything, we will have the pros and the cons with these type of discussions. But at the end of the day, it's about, this word has pretty much been throughout: shared vision, what's for the best of everybody in that country. That is my birth country, you know? And so I know we're not gonna take calls, but we're going to have you do some final thoughts, and then I will touch on that. And I thank you for bringing to light some things. I thank you for being transparent. Um, you know, um, these When you're in the public's eye, as you know, I always say you got to take the hits. It
Of
comes with
course.
taking the hits.
Of course.
And you are speaking for the voiceless. You will not be liked. I'm sure you're revered by many.
More people like me than dislike me.
And
Vast
so
majority.
others may not know you
Right.
and may know you tonight, because we are on the social media. We are live. We are seen in a host of countries and being listened to. And so I thank you for that. And as I will say it again, it's open to everyone. Any of our members that are in power in government right now, they have the floor as well, because you have to still hear, and you may not like some of the things you're going to hear,
Mhm.
but you have room to change.
But why must we give them a platform
No,
when
no,
they
no.
don't want?
No,
No. You have a right to. You're right.
Everybody
I'm
has
being
a right.
I'm being provocative here, right?
Yes.
So, and this is where this is going to be my final thought. This is where I always talk about. They want to be balanced, right? They went to the United States government and said, Congressman Jeffries, but you have been criticizing us. You have not met with us. Eva Clark, you have been criticizing us. You have not met with us. Attorney General, we want to meet with you, right? But in Guyana, they're denying that right to the opposition. In Guyana, they're denying that right to the people. You know what Bar Jagdev said 2 weeks ago? He attacked all the journalists in the country. Why are you publishing Rickford Burke's response to me? He's a criminal. Why are you giving him an opportunity to defend himself? So he is a king. He's the emperor, right? He's a ruler. He doesn't want the So my final thoughts are: we want a fair society. We want an equitable society. We want to see all sides of the political spectrum empowered. We want to see the resources of our country used for the benefit of all the people. We want to see the natural patrimony used for the benefit of all the people. That's all we want. That's our advocacy. We want equal rights and justice. We want accountability. We want, if you kill somebody, you must be held responsible, regardless of who you are. If you are a police commissioner and you instruct your supporters to frame people, you must be held accountable. If you're a police officer, you know how much information CJID gets? There are police officers in the Guyana Police Force who have written a letter to the United States government testifying to what is going on in the police force. We have a very effective intelligence network, right? So we know what is going on. I want Guyanese. First of all, I know Dalton going to talk about it, but we'll continue this discussion on Sunday, right? On the 28th.
You want to give them the information?
At Inspire Gravity Hall, which is at 6254 Memorial Drive, Suite A, Stone Mountain, Georgia. Everybody come out. It's going to be on my Facebook. It's going to be on the platform. It's going to be on this website right here. And the social media of the radio station come out on Sunday at 3 p.m. at 6254 Memorial Drive, Suite A, Stone Mountain. And we'll have Georgia politicians as well. We did it in New York, so we have politicians from this country, and we'll talk. State legislator.
Yes.
And, I'm pretty sure we can get a statement of the damages. But, which is a good thing.